Hello and welcome to another episode of Once a Warrior. My name is Monty Beetham, and with me today, my guest was the last half to take us to a final series. Blake Green, thanks for joining me, my man. How are you?
Thanks for having me on, Mont. Pumped to chat about a few things today.
Okay, so not everyone knows what you're up to. Let the fans know what's keeping you busy and where you're living.
Okay, well, I probably well know, man. I'm a mad footy head, so once I retired, I wanted to get into the coaching scene. So did a little bit of coaching when I finished up at the Knights as a bit of a skills coach at the club, and then I'm an assistant coach for the NRL side this year, doing the attack. So it's been a pretty quick transition for me.
In terms of your coaching, do you have ambitions of moving somewhere else, maybe New Zealand, perhaps, bro?
Oh, for sure, Mont. I'd definitely come back. If I have an opportunity to coach at the Warriors, I really enjoyed my time there. I've got a really good understanding of the culture and the people, and what motivates them to play well. I think coming over there and playing finals my first year there, I think we had the right balance of all of that, and that's super important at any club, but particularly at the Warriors. I think you've got a great coach at the moment that's got a good understanding of that in Andrew Webster. So I think bouncing around the clubs. In terms of the number, 7 NRL clubs that I played at, it's probably given me a really good grounding as a coach, to be honest. I've seen a few different systems. I've seen a heap of different coaches and do things different ways. So I think that's the main thing. I think sometimes people that have only been at one club, they only know how to do things a certain way. And if it doesn't work, well, then what then? So,
well, Greenie, you've got a fan club here in New Zealand, mate. It's because of moments like these in the jumper.
Gives the Warriors the lead. Green is through. Oh, Green is through from the try. That one's going to feel good.
Greenie, when you watch that back, a bit of nostalgia, reminiscing on the good old days, what comes to mind?
Oh, so many things. When I first come to the club, I just slotted in so easily. I've become really good friends with Adam Blair, Toru Harris, Simon Mannering, Roger. That was my little clique to start with in terms of older boys that we tried to lead the team. But I loved everything about it. There wasn't a person in the building that wasn't chasing success and wasn't trying to make the club better every day. There was no egos in the club. I can easily say that this club was all on the same page and headed in the right direction. I loved it from day one.
Greenie, I'm always fascinated about the how. When did you first think you're going to go to the Warriors, and when did it even become an idea in your mind?
Well, I'd left Melbourne and went to Manly at the time. I was still under contract at Manly. They had a few, big name guys that were on a bit of money and running into some potential sort of salary cap issues. And I had an opportunity. I had a conversation with Mooks, Steve Kearney at the time, and they were looking at a possibility of potentially buying a half with Kieran Foran leaving, and I just had a look at the spine. I seen Sean, Roger, Bully, and Simon. It was so exciting for me. I just thought, this is an opportunity to go to a club that. Who I thought from the outside, just needed a bit of a footy head to give him some direction because they had all the tools physically. So, that excited me from day one. And to be honest, I just really liked the type of person Mooks was. And I just really wanted to do well for him and get some success for him. He was just such a genuine guy. He always gave the impression to the team that everything was okay. If the coach displays a little bit of stress, like he's a bit worried about today, then all of a sudden you start thinking, even Mooks is worried we're in trouble. I know it's only a small thing, but you'd walk in and you'd ask him, hey, Mooks, how you going? Fantastic. Like he was awesome all the time. He was good. Everything was, no worries, not a drama. So he gave you an element of confidence without even knowing it. Well, he did for me anyway. I just thought like there was no occasion that overawed him. He had a good mix of being intense, but also rolling out a bit of a joke. and I thought he was the perfect fit at the time for the club.
Any reservations? Because, I mean, look, it's a big decision to jump ship or to go to the other side of the Tasman. You mentioned a lot of pros. Any cons?
Moving didn't worry me. It didn't stress me out. I had a heap of support from my wife, Sarah. We've been, together since we were in year 12 at high school. So we were best friends. And, one thing we've always spoken about, and I guess in our life, if you want to go get something, just go get it. Don't make excuses. Don't have any regrets. And that's what I was chasing. I wanted to come back to the NRL, hence the reason I jumped at the opportunity to leave Wigan and go to Melbourne. And then I wanted to be an on-the-ball half, and I wanted to sit back on a Friday night when I was 40 years old and say, I could do that. So that's why I did it.
You played at 9 clubs total. You've been around the place. I know you and Sarah, your family, was loved at the club. You did give your time. You really did try and connect with everyone, and that's not something that could be said about every player that came through, and some of the best players to ever wear the jumper.
I knew I needed to give myself over to the footy club in order for us to get results. But from what I witnessed, that people that have gone over to the Warriors and have dived into the culture and shown a genuine sense of care for the people that are there, they actually were able to get better performances out of everyone around them. And I think I didn't understand until I went there that, as a kid growing up in Australia, the only thing I ever did was play footy. And I loved it. And so when, if people ask me, what's your why, my why was I just loved it. I wanted to be the best. I wanted to be the best player I could be. And I just loved playing, and I wanted to win. They were my reasons. And I thought that was, growing up, I thought that was the only reason why everyone played footy. And it's not. But what I realised, that it's actually okay to have other reasons. I didn't realise it when I was young. But if you play to be a role model for your family, if you play to get, you want to buy your mum a house. If you would play just to prove people wrong, it doesn't matter what it is. Long as that reason why you play is strong enough that you don't throw the towel in when it gets tough on the field for your team. And that's what I found out big time when I went to the Warriors. That there's so many reasons why they play. It just needs to be strong enough that that they dig in when we need to dig in. And I reckon we started to get that.
I absolutely love that, bro, and purpose is different. All that matters is that you are playing to the best of your abilities for the club or the jumper you're in. You came along with Adam Blair, Peter Hickey, Tohu Harris, some really good experience coming in. Was it hard to not put your foot down, but to come in and do what you wanted to do to lead the way?
It was really easy, actually, mate, because the people that were already there, I think we were like a breath of fresh air, to be honest. For people like Sean and Simon, Roger, they'd taken a heap of criticism. They'd been on a bit of a roller coaster, ups and downs, probably more downs than ups. But we had myself and Tor, who spent the last sort of 2 or 3 years at Melbourne, where we had success, and when we've turned up, losing wasn't a common thing for us, so we didn't fear losing. That stuff didn't worry us. We were just chasing wins and going after it. So that attitude when we come in, I think it just gave everyone a little bit of energy and a bit of belief, like, hey, we can do this.
Your initial thoughts, can you remember what it was like, or did you think the club was a long way off where they needed to be, or just what was in your mind then?
Yeah, I guess the one thing that did rattle me a little bit, if I'm honest, was I could come to training on a Monday and we could be like a 9 out of 10, like Harlem Globetrotter style, flick passes, everything in the hands. It would stick, kicks, early kicks, short passing between the forwards. And I was like, wow, It was something that you don't experience at other clubs. But then you could wake up, I'd go home and I'd tell Sarah, I said, we're going to win it. Like, honestly, I've never seen that before. If we keep doing this, I don't think anyone could beat us. But then 24 hours later, we could be a 2 out of 10, and I could come home and said, we might be in a little bit of trouble here. And that was the problem. That was the problem with us, if I'm brutally honest, Mons. We just didn't find the consistent level where you don't need to be a 9 every week. If you can just be a 7 or 8 every week, it's enough to get it done. And then you obviously have your big games where you hit some peaks, but too many times we had a big gap between our best and worst game, and that level of consistency hurt us. So not only on the weekend, being able to chase that every day and be the same person every day, deliver the same standards every day, it's actually harder than you think. So that was something that spooked me, if I'm honest. Being at Melbourne, had some superstars around me. We may not have been a 9 every day, but we were a 7. We were probably a 7 out of 10 every day, and we never went below it. And then we get the occasional 9 where I'd go, wow, that was pretty good. Early on at the Warriors, when I got there, we had a heap of 9s, but we had a couple of 2s and 3s too. And I was like, oh, we need to bring this together.
Talk to me about the first 5 rounds, because you got it right. The consistency was there, and there were 9s, because there's 5 wins in a row, the best start the club has seen ever.
I honestly think that the start of the season and going over to Perth for 5 days before the game, no one really gave us a chance against the Bunnies. And if I'm honest, we put together one of the sharpest sort of captain runs I've seen. Like, everything just stuck. Had a really good energy about us, good feeling. And Brian Smith actually come over to me and he said, mate, that captain's run was just straight off the top shelf, I reckon, mate. And I felt the same. I thought, I'm gonna tell everyone this. Instead of being conservative and say, oh, let's just get to tomorrow, I thought, no, I'm gonna drive this energy while it was hot. So I told everyone, I said, boys, we're ready to go tomorrow. That's straight off the top shelf. I said, we don't need to change nothing. Like, we're ready. Like, everything's in the bag. It's been prepped. It's been done. We don't even need to think or stress about the game now. Let's just get here tomorrow night and turn one on. It just sort of happened for us. We had a couple of things go our way, and all of a sudden it generated momentum. And before we knew it, we went bang, bang, like you said, 5 in a row. And it's historically with the Warriors, I reckon, over the years, once they get momentum, they're very hard to stop. So once we had it, we had a heap of belief, and it just carried on to start the year.
It was the first time we got to a playoff series for 7 years. So if we could bottle what went on well for that club and for those players, what would it be?
Well, if I'm honest, Mons, I reckon the club's got it back. Obviously, we played you guys a couple of weeks ago, and I thought the way that you defended and just the urgency that you showed, I don't reckon that was there for a couple of years, if I'm honest. I reckon that's something that when we played well in 2018 and made the finals, we defended well. So like the club's always going to be able to attack well. Naturally gifted, athletes that are produced in New Zealand that play. Attack's never going to be an issue, but being able to concentrate and stay on task and produce effort on effort defensively is always a good sign that the club's in a good place to go well. And I reckon so far to start this season, they've certainly showed a heap of that.
That final 8, I mean, there was one win from separating you at 8th to 1st in the Roosters in the way the season panned out. It was a close season.
Yeah, it was a close year, like you said, Motts. I think the top 4 were all on the same points, and the 5th to 8th were on the same points. So, mate, it's a tough one to swallow, to be honest. We started well in that game. I think we were 12-0 or 12-2 up, and we lose Roger 20 minutes in, and then, we sort of lost our way. And, it probably, looking back, it probably summed us up a little bit. We're a really close, emotional group, and then when one of our friends gets hurt and gets taken off, instead of just being able to crack on and focus on the task at hand, we will, element of probably worry and thinking about him too much, sometimes, can overtake your thoughts. Where, it's a shame. It's a shame, mate, because I thought we certainly had the right mix in our squad that year to go a bit further than we did.
Absolutely, believe that myself. But also that year, there's a couple of individual accolades that we haven't seen for a while. You mentioned him many times. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, he was the Daily M Player of the Year. Never happened for Warriors. And then also Fusi Tua, who was the top try scorer. Never happened as well with 22. Talk to me about each of those players and what made them special in your eyes, your opinion.
I'll go with Fuss first. He moved like an NFL player at training. Like, he just, he had really powerful and explosive. He was one of the ones that used to make me nervous because he could produce some amazing things, but then some days I thought, is he even interested today? But he he was a special player for us that year. He finished some outstanding tries, but it wasn't just the try scoring record, I guess, that he got for the club and the Dally M try scorer of the year, but his yardage meters and some of his carries, he was really aggressive and just slammed his bumpers into some opposition halves and just generated momentum for our sets. So he was enormous for us, and I think Roger was that season. He would take tackle 1 and then play the ball. Ken or Fuss would take 1. He'd take tackle 3. He was just, in terms of an action-first leader, I haven't seen a better one. Anyone can stand there and say, this is what we need to do, because he was full of energy and he was just a competitor. He actually probably didn't know at that stage what to say, but he just thought, oh, listen, just do this. And he just carried the ball for you. He was enormous, mate. And as you've seen, I think the emotion for our boys that were, there at the Dally M night that stood up as soon as his name got called out, and that just speaks volumes. I don't think anyone really understands that. Well, particularly the Aussies over here in Australia, they just think, oh yeah, they're just doing a haka for him, but it's not. That's not what it was about. He held a special place, in our team and had a special connection with everyone, that played there. It just showed how much he meant to all of us and how proud they were of him.
Who else in your mind was crucial in getting to that playoffs position?
Well, I thought Toru Harris, as you've seen, his whole time at the Warriors, he's been immense, for the footy club. But he just gets through a mountain of work, no nonsense, and just gets the job done. He's had a heap of big game experience. Sean, he came up with some brilliant moments for us. It's a tough position. I didn't realise until I got there. He cops a fair bit of heat, over there because of the highlights reels that he can produce. So he was trying to find that balance out in 2018, and I reckon he got that balance right. I guess having someone like myself, he didn't have to worry about the tackle count or what part of the field to get to or what the clock was doing. He just used his eyes and played footy, which is important for someone like him who was just naturally gifted at creating space and beating people.
Round 1, 2020 against the Knights. The loss was one thing, but to come back to the change room and all of a sudden get hit with the news that you can't go back home. Talk to me about it, because I'm sure as one of the big leaders in the team, you had to help a few people.
Yeah, that was hard once. I guess it was hard for everyone that period, I guess, when COVID sort of took off and I guess took over the world in some cases. But, for our footy club, it had a huge impact, particularly when we didn't know when we were going to be able to come home. And, so many of us had young kids and partners, back home in New Zealand. Unfortunately, sort of 10 days later, the comp was called off and we got to come back and see everyone. But it was a tough time. I reckon the period after we returned to New Zealand was the toughest part, because that's when, obviously the NRL were keen to kick things back off, as were we. We weren't trying or avoiding not playing, but what we were after was just a little bit of certainty. They were asking us to pack up and just come back over to Australia, but they couldn't tell us when the comp was starting. They couldn't tell us how many games, how long we were going to be there for, if we could go back home. We just had all these unknowns. I don't think it was, valued enough what the club and the players, had to go through.
It probably didn't make things easier too, was when Todd Payton took over from Mooks. Did you guys see this coming? Were you aware of this? Did you have any input? And how was that transition?
It was a big shock, Mons. Obviously, he was very popular, Mooks, within the playing group. Everyone really enjoyed his coaching style and the type of person that he was. And then, when that sort of hit us, it was unexpected. We didn't see it coming. we were staying in a hotel at Terrigal at that stage. He called us up to his room and let us know of the decision that the club had made. So, that was a tough time, and then I felt sorry for Toddy as well, because Toddy took over and, he didn't ask for his first shot as a head coach to be in those circumstances either. So it was a difficult one for him. And then we had a couple of players that, it was all too much to him, and decided to go back home. So, it was winning games was hard with all that sort of stuff going around when you're trying to connect a group that needs a real strong connection and bond to do well. And it was just broken so many times that season.
Greeny, most memorable games for you?
Certainly the first one. The first one was a big one. It was the first time that we had, I think, maybe a double header at that Optus Stadium in Perth. So first time I pulled the jersey on and with a really good result against a quality South team. I think after that, some of the home games we played were really special. I remember playing a Women in League round against Newcastle, which is an important one for us. I think we've sort of gone win, loss, win, and we just needed a result to kick us into the 8, and we won that one, which sort of, with a month to go, locked it away for us. So that was a big one. And I also remember in, I think it might have been 2019, our first game was at home for the year, when we won 40-0. The crowd was immense. We come off, playing finals footy the year before and started round one like that. It was a super feeling.
What about some of the players that you will always remember for right or wrong reasons? You know what I mean? There's always those guys that I can't forget that dude, man.
Oh, Jazz Tavunga, man, I just can't forget him. He's, I love him actually. I got along so well with him. Just a down-to-earth guy. He's just a knockabout. There's no nonsense with him. He says how he feels. But I love how he played the game. I love how tough he was. I love how he just went after it. For his size, he went after guys that were, he's bigger than he was, and he hasn't got a ridiculous amount of skill or ability, but he certainly makes up for it for his effort, determination. He was one of my favourite players to play with. I really enjoyed him.
Just finally, sum up your time now at the club and what it meant to you to be a Warrior.
Mate, I had a great time over there. Like I said, my son Boston, he started his schooling over in New Zealand. It was just such a great experience for him that, day one on his school, he got, I guess the Kappa Haka group did a bit of a haka to sort of welcome him to the school. So, there's some really fond memories of that. There's a heap of different trips that I had with Blairy. Then we go up north. We go to Tafanui National Park to the beach and spend a heap of time together. I had such a great time. Just embrace the culture and the people. I loved being able to walk the streets and see how happy that winning on Saturday or Sunday, how happy it made all the people in my local area. It made their day. They were so excited, and it was infectious. I wanted to get more of it. It was a pleasure being able to play for them. The fans were fantastic. Just everyone was humble. Just great people.
Greeny, once a Warrior, always a Warrior, and I thank you for giving you all on the field and off the field, mate. Your service was awesome.
Thanks, Mods. Appreciate it.
And I want to thank you guys for choosing Once a Warrior. I'll see you same time next week.
Green into the gap. Blake Green! What about that? Inside the 40. He's going to find it. Great kick. Blake Green gives the Warriors